While learning to play the piano is a fun and exciting process, practicing with incorrect technique can often lead to chronic injuries such as tendinitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, neck pain, and back pain. This is extremely frustrating and difficult because in some cases it forces you to just give up the piano, and in other cases it's a serious struggle to enjoy something you really love. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 6 steps to help you avoid injury so you can enjoy the process of learning the piano and play your favorite songs. So stick around. Avoiding injury on the piano starts with having the right gear, and that has to do with the best stand and the best keyboard bench. Both of these needs to be adjustable because we all have different torso length, we have different leg length, thigh, all of that stuff. And so very two people sit at the same height. We have to change the bench and the stand to suit our body structure, our body type. And so those are the 2 most important things. If you take a look over here at this camera, look at how I sit. Now there's some important things here. Notice how my legs slide nicely under the keyboard, right? I don't have to sit wide like that because it's at the correct height for my legs, right? So right now my feet are flat on the floor and they slip right under the keyboard nicely. This is your ideal correct height for you. You need to be able to sit down and your legs slide right under the keyboard. Now also look at my thigh. They're sort of like parallel to the ground, 90 degrees to the ground. So that's important. And how you achieve that is with the bench. You need to have your bench at a height that when you sit down, it's nice and straight and parallel to the ground. So that's why it's important for you to have adjustable bench. And I'm going to link down below the keyboard bench that I'm using. I think it's one of the best bench on the market. I've gone through a lot of different keyboard benches over the years. This one is very solid. I'm going to link down below to that. But again, when you sit down, feet flat on the floor, you should be able to slide your legs right under the keyboard. Now step number 2, once you have your keyboard height and a keyboard bench figured out and your stand, the next thing is how you sit around the keyboard. We call this the ergonomic posture, right? Now again, if we look at this camera over here, look at my distance from the keyboard. I am not up close like that, right? This is restrictive that my hands can't really get to move. Also, this forces my shoulders to sort of crunched up. After a while, these will start to cause shoulder pain because I'm creating unnecessary tension. So you need to be able to sit back comfortably based on the length of your arm. Now look at what happens when I place my hands on the keyboard. You see again how parallel my hand is? It's a straight line parallel to the floor. It's not like this, and it's not like this. It's straight. I always like to say also, my navel is right here and the keyboard keys are right here. So again, you could draw a straight line from my navel to the keyboard. That's how, again, you know you're sitting at the correct height. Now, when my hands are on the keyboard, you notice how my forearm is straight and then it just kind of flush down to my fingers. I am not like this. This is very bad for your wrist. So if you notice you're playing and you have this indent in your wrist, this reverse curved, that's bad for your wrist. That's putting a lot of pressure on those tendons, and over time, you will definitely start to feel pain there. Your wrist needs to be raised and relaxed, and then that flushes down to your finger. So your finger should have a natural curve. See, when I lift my hand, that's a natural curve. None of my fingers are sticking out. If you see your fingers sticking out like that, that again is because there's tension in your fingers, and over time that leads to pain. So you want to be conscious of that, force yourself to relax your fingers. Look at my shoulders when I sit. Again, my shoulders aren't scrunched up. My back is not arched over like this. And my hands is definitely not in my lap. Now, the reason why I'm pointing out all of this is because I've seen keyboard players, many keyboard players, doing all of these things. So if you're practicing and you find yourself like that, with your back curved like that, that's going to cause a lot of back pain a lot of shoulder pain, right? You want to be relaxed in all of those areas, and that starts with sitting correctly, having everything at the correct height so your body flows naturally on the instrument. Also notice my legs. It's just the front part of my knee right here, a little under my knee, that's under the keyboard. That's again another way to gauge how far you are, because we all have different length thighs, right? So you just want the front part of your knee under the keyboard. If you find that half of your thighs under the keyboard, you're sitting way too close. You need a backup. That will give you enough arm length. Another thing as it relates to ergonomics and how we move on the keyboard, we oftentimes have to extend to the different registers, right? The outer registers. So if I'm playing a scale, look at how my torso is moving. This is called moving on your sit bones, right? So I don't scooch over and I don't bend and reach. I move my sit bone and my torso moves with it. And that's what allows me to maintain speed, clarity, and control regardless of where I am on the keyboard. Another thing that I like to do, if I'm going in the opposite direction, I oftentimes take my left leg and I put it back. This allows me to then move as far as I can toward my left on my sit bone. Now, I touched on this, tip number 3, a little bit earlier, but that's again to avoid tension. Oftentimes the place where you'll find tension sort of lingers the most when you're playing the piano is in your wrists. If you find yourself with a tight wrist, relax it. You don't need a lot of strength to play the keyboard. You don't need a tight elbow at all. You don't need any form of tension in your elbows. Keep that relaxed. Shoulders is a big one, and this was something I struggled with in my early days to the point where I just developed muscle spasm in my shoulder. So it's really important to keep those shoulders relaxed. Oftentimes when we're playing difficult passages, your shoulder might start to tighten, right? That's just from anxiety. It's important to check in with that and relax those shoulders. Keep them nice and relaxed. Now, one of the things that I did when I was learning keyboard, or my teacher recommended, is that we take stretching classes, yoga classes, right? Pilates, whatever. But if you're not doing some form of a stretch exercise, nothing serious, nothing intense, but it's important to stretch these areas. Loosened up, do a little warm up every now and then so you get used to keeping those areas nice, relaxed, and tension free, especially if your job requires you to generate a lot of tension and tightness and stress in those areas. It's very important because, again, remember, the piano learning process is a lifelong process. And so if we're not doing it correctly, in a matter of 2-3 years, you can start to see just how difficult these injuries can become. And just as how they may take 2 to 3 years to develop, it may also take 2 to 3 years to get rid of. So it's very important that you pay attention to a lot of these things I'm pointing out. Tip number 4 is to listen to your body. If you're practicing and you feel pain, it's not normal, and don't try to push through it. Stop, try to assess why you think you're experiencing pain. Oftentimes pain is linked to tension, or it could be an injury that you have before learning the piano and that's acting up. Now, when stuff like that happens, it's very important to consult your doctor because it could be a myriad of things that's happening. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you any sort of medical advice, but it's important to not push through pain. Again, oftentimes the places that you'll start to feel pain quickly is your hands. The muscles in your hands are very small, and so it doesn't take a lot to injure these muscles. Oftentimes also you might find forearm pain, especially if you're practicing on a real piano where the keys are harder. Take frequent breaks and, rest if you're starting to feel these places hurt and tighten up. So it's very important to listen to your body and feel where the tension or the tightness is occurring, and then start to address that from early. Don't let it linger. Tip number 5, we talked a little bit about that earlier again, is just how you move around the piano. Moving around the piano can not only get rid of tension, it also allow you to move with a lot more accuracy. Oftentimes people say, Warren, how do you play without looking at your hands? And that's because I've learned how to move on the piano. So I can do most things without looking, all right? I can play chords, and I know what chord I'm going for even with my eyes closed. My teacher always said we measure distances in arches, not linear. And so when you're moving on the piano, get accustomed to moving arches. Imagine a rope tied around your wrist and pulling you up from your wrist. So we don't move like that, but like that. And definitely not like that. You move in arches. Those things help to alleviate unnecessary tension and allows you to measure your distances easier. And tip number 6, again, is if you're experiencing discomfort, especially if it's lasting for weeks and months, definitely consult a doctor, your chiropractor, to see what's going on there. But the most important thing you can learn to do as a pianist is to train yourself to identify tension in your body. Again, the places that you'll find tension tend to linger: wrist, elbows, shoulders, back, upper back, and lower back, right? And so you need to be able to feel that, okay, my shoulder is getting tight. So you constantly check in with that stuff. Am I tight? Am I relaxed? Am I experiencing any pain anywhere? And the sooner you can sort of nip that in bud, the better it's going to be for you. But if you've been somehow not paying attention to that and you're saying, Warren, every time I sit and play, 5 minutes in, my forearm is tight as a rock. And if this has been going on for a long time, definitely consult your doctor, right? Now, one of the best ways I have found to help you develop proper technique and to help you monitor your tension while you're practicing is through scales. Practicing scales have many different functions or benefits, right? Because it allows you to move up and down the piano. So you get to practice moving on your sit bone. And because you have to move through different registers in octave, then you have to learn how to move your hands and your shoulders. It's also a great way to practice this natural curve without having fingers sticking out when you're playing. Again, you don't need a low wrist, you need to maintain a high wrist. Another thing you can do is to just record yourself, right? Set up your phone, try to capture your entire torso, record yourself, and then go back and look at your profile. Look and see how your hands shape when you're playing. Are you naturally dipping one wrist? Are you naturally sticking out a finger? Because sometimes these things aren't conscious. You're not aware that you're even doing it, right? And so if you record yourself, you can oftentimes catch these little things and say, wait, I'm doing that thing that Warren talked about. So you need to then keep a mental note so you can resolve it. So if you're not actively sort of running scales every now and then, you should start doing so. And so I have a free PDF covering all 12 major scales with the correct fingering you can download below. The link is in the description below. All right. And lastly, I would say, if you want to take your piano playing to the next level, I would highly recommend you check out pianolessonwithwarren.com. One of the best online platforms for learning gospel music by ear. And if you also want a free video covering all 12 major scales to accompany the PDF, then you want to check out this video right here. All right? Again, thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified when I post weekly videos like this. Have a blessed week and talk soon.